Hello everyone, I'm Michigan and welcome back to my channel. This is Orange Studios, and on Orange Studios we teach you tips and tricks to graphic designing. In today's tutorial, guess what we are going to do? We are going to do this. Let's get into Photoshop. So like you've just seen, we are going to learn how to design a simple advertising flyer. The main objective of today's tutorial is to learn some basics in compositing. Now when we say compositing simply means blending or combining two or more images into a single image. Let's first create a document. To do that, we hit on Ctrl+N. Now I've already set some presets, my preset details. I have my 5 inches for width, 5 inches for height. Resolution is set to 300 pixels per inch. Color mode is set to RGB. Background is set to white, which is okay and fine by me. Let's just name this Add Flyer. Click on Create to open document. Now let's drop our images in. Let's click on any of the anchor points at the edges. Press on Alt to have a uniform transformation. So click on any of the edges, press on Alt and drag it away from the center so that it enlarges, it becomes bigger. Let's say this is okay. Click here to commit transformation. Let's try and readjust this. Let's drop in our second image. Now we will be working with just the wooden platform, not the black background. So what we have to do is to first of all rasterize this image. So right click and then click on rasterize. Now we rasterize images to help us edit some part of the image, like applying some blurrings and all that. Let's apply a layer mask, and you can add a layer mask with this icon here. Click on that and then you've just applied a layer mask. So applying layer mask simply means that you can edit part of the images without permanently deleting them. So we can say erase this part without permanently deleting it, so that if we want to go back to it or we want to call back this part of the image, we can do that. Let's select the rectangle marquee tool to make our selection around this. So a simple click and drag to cover the part of the image you want to erase or clean. Let's select our brush tool. Let's set the hardness to 100 because we just want to take this part off completely. I think the size is good, it covers enough so I don't have to work a lot. Hit enter and then click to just erase this part of the image that we didn't want. Ctrl D to deselect and then hit on vein to select the move tool, or just come here and click. Now I want to enlarge this one too, so Ctrl T to activate transformation. Click on any of the anchor points here and then press on Alt to have a uniform transformation. We want to do that so that the table becomes big. Now let's hit on enter to commit transformation. Now you realize that the field is in focus, the table too is in focus, even some part of the table is out of focus. So what we want to do is to put this part of the design out of focus. To do that, just select this layer here, come over to filter, add blur, Gaussian blur. Now we can increase it as much as we want, and the blur gets too much. You see, so the less radius there is, the more it becomes sharper. The more the radius, the more it gets blurred. Let's go for 8. I think 8 will be okay. Hit enter to activate. Now, just with this, you realize that the image already allows us to focus on this text, and that's the purpose for the Gaussian blur. If it looks too sharp for you, you can again just double click here and then increase the radius. So let's just increase it and see what happens. I think even 11 is okay. Let's make it 12. Hit and enter to activate. Now we have some sunlight here. Fine, is cool, but I want to add more sunlight so that we can have the sunlight not just affecting this image but affecting every other thing we would add to the design. Let's go back to a folder and drag the sunlight which we already have here. Now you want to drag it to where the sun is already positioned in this picture, so they don't have two sunrises in one image. That's not possible. So click on the edge, hit on Control to have a uniform transformation, and just drag towards the center to reduce it. So I think this size is okay. Hit enter to commit transformation, or just come here and click. Now let's change the blend mode for this. To do that, come over here. You see this is normal. It's already set to normal. So let's click on that. There are several blend modes that will help you blend. We'll talk about blend modes in other videos, but for now let's go for screen because it works better. Now the next thing we are going to do is to duplicate this by hitting Ctrl J, or just come over here, right click, and then select duplicate layer. So you either go with Ctrl J, or you come over there, right click, and duplicate layer. Let's reduce the opacity of this second layer. Let's say 15. 15 is okay. Let's even further reduce the size of the first one. Now let's increase this so that it covers some part of the platform. Now let's see the before. Let's zoom in so that we can have a look at the desk. You see, so it affects this part of the design. Let's get back into the design. One thing you can also notice that the background is very blurred and it's out of focus, but the edge of the table is too much in focus. We don't want to do that, so let's come over to the table, select the table or the platform. We can use the lasso tool to select part of the image we want to blur, or use the blur tool to do that. And then we can just brush on the areas we want to blur. Now for fast results, we can use the lasso tool. Just make selection, freehand selection around this. Increase the feather, which is okay with 15. I'm okay with 15. Now once again, filter, come over to blur, Gaussian blur, and then set it to a radius size that would be okay for you. I think 1.5 be okay. Control D to deselect. Let's zoom out and see. So here we go. So already the platform is somehow blending with the whole image. Now let's drop in our next image. Move over to our folder here. The next thing we want to drop here is this product which we are going to work with. Now if you want me to do a tutorial on how to do a mock-up like this, leave a comment below, or let me have 1k likes and I'll do a tutorial on that. Let's drop it in here. Good. So this is our main object. So this is the product we are trying to advertise. Let's click on the sign to commit our transform. For now, let's take it off. Let's turn it off. Let's just turn it off. Let's bring in the banana plant. Okay, so want to drop the banana plant so that at least we have some green feel, some actual banana plant in the design, and I think that makes it look much better. It gives the idea that we are still on farm, the product is fresh from the farm and all that. Hit on enter to commit transformation. Let's drag this behind the platform and then take this sunlight above the platform so that, like I was trying to emphasize, you realize that now the sun hits the platform and parts of the banana plant. Now you realize that the sun is giving us a yellow effect, but this part of the banana is still white, so we can simply add a new layer, then use the brush to paint over this part that is too whitish some yellow effect and make it blend much better into the background. So let's do that by selecting the brush tool, reduce the size of the brush. This time the hardness is too much, we don't want to work with a hard brush. Let's set the hardness to 0. Enter to commit. We can further reduce the brush size if you want. So what we'll do now, after we've selected the brush tool, is to press on Alt and just pick some yellow from the background. Let's work with this yellow, and then we'll paint it over the parts that are whitish and it's not really affected by the sun rays. So now let's do that. So before we paint, let's set the blend mode for this layer. Let's call this layer let's call it light effect on light effect. Let's set the blend mode for this layer to screen. Now to select the color, like I said, press on Alt, you realize the eyedropper tool appears, and click on the shade of yellow you want to apply over the plant. Let's go with this. So you realize that the blend mode doesn't work for this. What you do is to change, overlay, lighten, multiply, soft light works. Now reduce the opacity of this layer, and now we apply more painting over the plant. So now after we are done with the painting, we want to just have this layer affecting just the plant. So let's drag this over here right on top of the plant. Now take your mouse just between this layer and the plant layer. You realize that this arrow appears. Just click to have it applied just to this layer. Now you notice that this part of the table is blurred, so this plant can't be too sharp either. So let's just apply a little Gaussian blur to this plant. I think this is okay. Now let's activate this product, our main product. It's the main object, so you can make it as big as you want, but obviously it should be in perspective. So let's just say this is okay. Hit enter to activate. Realize that yes, the object is here, it's on the table, it's looking good already, but it's not looking real because there are no shadows. So what we do is to first double click to bring out the effect layer or the effect panel. I want to add a drop shadow. Let's try and adjust that by clicking here. Reduce the directions too far. Yes, let's increase the size and then reduce the direction a little more. I think this is okay. One other thing we can do to have absolute control over the drop down shadow is to separate it from this layer or the main layer. So what we do is to right click here. It asks you to create layer. So we are, instead of having the effect as an effect on a layer, we are making the effect another layer. So click on this to create the layer. Okay, so now we can just move the shadow everywhere we want. Okay, that's the essence of creating it, so that we can have much more control over the shadow layer. Control T to bring out transformation. Let's drop it a little. Now you realize that the sun is coming from this direction, so we can move this here. Let's try this. Let's move the plant right from here to this side of the screen and see. At this point, let's try to group. At this point, let's try to put all things into groups. So we are first of all going to group the background. Let's select everything that Control G, double click to rename. Right click, change the color for easy identification. So now our background is in the group. Okay, now let's put our fruit juice and the drop shadow and everything into a group. Select these two. First of all, let's link them. Now what that does is now what that does is now what this does is that once you click on any object, you move the two all at once. Okay, that's it off too. Now let's group it. Create a new layer. Use the opacity. Let's create another shadow layer. Let's name this the shadow layer. Shadow layer. Let's create another one for this. Now we are trying to add our cap layer, our glass. Let me call it glass. Take it above. Yeah. Now, this part of the glass looks too thick, looks too flat. So what we can do to help, glass is somehow transparent, so we want to do some selection. Let's use the polygonal lasso tool. No, let's go for the pen tool. That'll help us. So pen tool, to add a layer mask, select the pen tool like I've done. Just click and do a selection around the part of the glass we want to make a little more transparent. Select, hit here, click here to apply selection. Now B to apply brush. B, press on B to activate the brush tool. Let's reduce the opacity. Let's reduce the opacity. Let's reduce the opacity. Now, I think it's too much, so reduce the size of the brush. Now invert this. When it's set to black, it helps you erase. When it's set to white, it helps you restore. So now let's do this. Increase the opacity this time. So just increase some part of it. Yes, I think this is okay. Let's apply some drop down shadow to this as well. Let's bring in some more elements. I've already cut out the banana too, so let's just pick and drop them. Let's reduce the size of the banana. Okay, now, so let's try and add other elements to make it look more dramatic. Okay, let's add one more. Let's drop this in there. Okay, let's make it smaller. Remember, the product is banana plus ginger, so just drop some ginger in there. Again, you want to add some drop down shadows to give it a realistic look. I think the shadows is good enough. Now, we've got some PNG of banana slices, so I want to drop them in here, add it to the effect. So this is what we are going to do. First off, let's close this group, close that group, so we have minimum things here. Want to split these things into individual elements. So like I mentioned, rasterize, right click, select rasterize layer, and then we can split them by using either any of the selection any of the selection tools. Let's go for this. Let's try and create the effects we are trying to do. So you've created a layer for the splash shadow like I've just done. You just want to select the brush tool, make sure your color is set to black, because shadows, we want to create that shadow, a dark shadow around the image. And let's try to realign this group. Call it the product group. So on the final, one of the final things we want to do is to make sure the whole image, the whole design blends in a uniform color scheme. So to do that, let's just add some gradient map. Now let me increase it and then let's see the before and after. Before and after, so you realize that everything is already looking like they all have the same color scheme. So what we have to do is now adjust the opacity, the strength, or how loud this would be. Let's create a group within a group, another group within a group. Let's try to apply more shadow to the platform so that we can give it an area of focus, spotlight. Want to make the banana blend a little more into the background, so let's add some light effect on it. We want to create some orange yellowish light. Notice the edges of the banana is too rough. We can smoothen that using the blur tool. But again, you realize it's not active here, so we have to first of all rasterize this layer. And then reduce the brush size. Smoothen out all the edges. Again, let's clip mask. Hold on Alt, drag your mouse between this layer and that layer. So let's look at it before, after. Change the blend mode to screen again. So at this point, I think we are cool, we are good. We just want to add a little more effect, make it a little more dramatic, and that's it. Add some text and we are good. Let's try and duplicate this and see if we bring it here, if it will be okay. Okay, so we just place some of the leaves at the corners just to make it look a little more dramatic. You know, the plantation fields are not always organized, so just keep it a little messed up to make it look real, make it look a bit natural. And I think this works for me. Let's add a little text and we are done. So this is the final look we have here. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this tutorial. I just hope it was helpful. If it was, don't forget to subscribe. And if you had any challenge with any part of the tutorial, don't worry. Leave a comment and I'll respond. And one more thing, Charlie, I hope you liked the video. If you did, I beg, make you subscribe. Oh, subscribe. Just subscribe. It's free. Subscription is free. Sister, it is free. Bye-bye.